Welcome to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages, with your host, Matthew Shipp. This is the podcast for all of those who are involved in the agriculture all the way to the distribution of beverages. And now your host, Matthew Shipp.
Hello and welcome to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages. I'm your host, Matthew Shipp, and today I am here with Dan Tripp, the co-owner of Good News Brewing Company and Alpha Omega Coffee. How you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing great.
Great. So we've got two companies we're talking about. We'll and I think they have a lot of crossover. Absolutely. And go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how Good News came into existence, and what really inspired you. And I believe it was Good News and then Alpha Omega. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Yeah, so I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for 25 years now, almost 24. And my goal in life was to be a principal. I got my doctorate degree, was taking on every type of role I could in the school district systems, summer school principal, anything, leadership roles. And things just never really connected and never really worked out for me. And finally, that one year, I became an assistant principal. And I hated it.
Oh, no.
It just wasn't my calling. It wasn't really what I shouldn't say it was my calling. I misused that word. It wasn't aligned with what I wanted to be doing. I just felt like I was always working for someone else. Being a school administrator is a very hard job. You're always you have to deal with the difficult students. You have to deal with difficult parents. You have to deal with difficult teachers. It's not a very fun experience for a lot of things. I was homebrewing for quite a while, and because I knew that one day I wanted to open up my own restaurant. I want to open my own brew pub. And so that's what got me into brewing beer, because my dream was after I retired from teaching, I was going to open a pizza restaurant. And I really got into craft beer. And I realized at that time there wasn't a lot of breweries. And so I thought, why don't I just open a brewery? A little small brew pub that has pizza, and that'll be my retirement plan. And so with my church, I was very involved with our church. My wife and I, we used to go on long-term mission trips to Honduras. We did mission trips to Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. And we joined this church that was really focusing on local missions here around town. And so we started what's called a mission community. Long story short here, that's where Matt Fair come in the picture. So I was homebrewing. I was getting okay with it. I was not great. I'll never claim that I was great. I made one good, really, really good beer that I loved, and that was probably that. Maybe two beers, but I was not a great home brewer. I was okay. And so we were doing I was doing all grain brewing. And so that's the question that a lot of brewers get asked when they're home brewing. Are you extract or all grain? And so it was all grain. And Matt Fair, he came to my Bible study one day, and I was like, hey, do you want to see my brew system? I brew beer. And he's like, yeah, I brew beer too. And so, hey, come down and see my brew system. So I showed him my little rinky-dinky electronic brew system, and he pretty much laughed at it and was like, all right, if this guy can do it, I can do it a lot better than him. Because he was homebrewing too with extract.
Okay.
And so he got hooked, and he's like, all right, I'm going to start brewing. And that he did. He created a homebrew system in his basement. And the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I took all my brewing equipment, and I was like, hey, here you go. I'm brewing with you for now on. So that's what we started doing, is we started brewing beer in his basement. And that's when Josh also came along. He was one of the founders originally. And so the three of us became friends. We started brewing beer together, and we did that for about, I would say, a year or two, just brewing, experimenting, constantly just refining, and just became a great friendship of beer. And then we were doing a book study with our Bible study, and the book was called Flesh. And it was how Jesus took on flesh and blood. And the idea of the book was to stop inviting people to church and instead focus on inviting them to your house, invite them to gathering places, invite them to share your gifts and your talents. So once a month, we decided to have a brew party in our basement. So once a month, we had our Bible study, our friends, family, and it was a great way to just meet with someone and say, hey, do you like beer? Well, yeah. It's like, hey, we have a brew party at our house. You want to come over and hang out? And of course, that was just an easier way to get people to come hang out with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we did. So once a month, we made beer and ate pizza and shared good news.
Kind of like we're doing right now.
There we go.
All right. So out of that idea, working in having this once a month brew party, where did you get the idea to let's turn this into a business?
So that dream of opening the business that I had, as I mentioned, I was the assistant principal and I hated it. And I was making beer and I was loving it. And the whole part of creating this gathering experience was just more exciting than anything else I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And so one day we went to our homebrew supply store, and it was called Design to Brew, which is here in St. Charles. Not the same owners. Mm-hmm. But we went into the owners there because that was where we bought all of our beer grains. We were hands down their number one customers because we were actually brewing a barrel of beer at a time in Matt's basement. So we weren't just home brewers. We had one barrel brew system. I'm pretty sure we're the only home brewers out there that were brewing with a one barrel system here.
A little more serious than the average home brewer.
Yeah. So we were buying sacks and sacks of grains every month because we would brew a lot. I mean, not just with our Bible study. We would probably brew every week. Mm-hmm. We would brew something. And so I went into the homebrew supply store and it's like, hey, you got this little retail space next door to you. Like, how much does it cost to rent a space? Like, I have no idea. I'm a teacher. Like, what does it cost to rent retail space? Because we thought we had so much beer now that we couldn't drink all the beer that we were making. We had so much beer that we were giving it away to charities and to nonprofits. So we were trying to figure out okay, we got to sell this somehow. We know that we just couldn't sell it legally. So let's just get a little retail space and get our TTB license and just start selling our beer to restaurants and bars. And we thought that'd be the coolest thing. Like if there was a couple restaurants and bars that we already knew that we were friends with, and they've had our beer. They're like, oh yeah, if you guys made this, we would serve it. Like, that's so cool. Like, to be able to go to a tap room and be able to go there and buy our beer that we made. We thought that'd be the coolest thing. And so we asked them and they're like, well, actually you can't lease this space next door because we just took the lease on it and we are going to open a brewery. Yeah. And so that was the foundation of Design to Brew. They started that brewery and they wanted to brew beer, but they said, but we can't brew enough beer. We don't have the time. Why don't you guys start brewing beer with us? Like, okay, like that
fractional brewers,
good. Right? And so I was like, well, how does it? Like, what do you mean? What would we do? She's like, oh, it's just easy. Just we would do collaborations. Like, you just need. I was like, well, what do we need to do that? She's like, well, you just need to come up with a name and an LLC. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. So I went home and I told Matt, I'm like, hey, guess what? We're gonna start brewing beer with Design to Brew. And he's like, well, what do we got to do? I'm like, got to form an LLC. He's like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. Let's Google it. And so we Googled what is an LLC and figured out how to do that, but we didn't have a name yet, and so we were going around back and forth, the three of us, with all kinds of different names. And at that time, Josh was having he had an unborn child, and they were going through some complications in the hospital. And he said we were going back through a text message, and he said something about use some good news, and that's what stuck. Because that's why we started to doing what we were doing. And so Good News was the name. So we formed a logo, we created a website, and then we're like, all right, we need some money. And we created one of those Kickstarter campaigns.
Oh, okay.
And it failed.
Oh, no.
No one, I think one person actually paid for our Kickstarter thing. And so we're like, all right, well, I guess this isn't going to work. And so also the relationship with Design to Brew kind of went south because they wanted to end up selling their business, and so they actually sold it to the current owners now. So we ended up buying some of the equipment ourselves. Well, my wife did on her credit card on her name, so I guess she's the original investor that she didn't know about. So there's that. So we had all this equipment, we bought it, and then now we're hooked. Like we gotta brew beer. Like we gotta find a space. So we looked all around town area. Being in the St. Charles area, we knew the municipalities here. We have Frenchtown and Wentzville. We have Third Wheel that was in St. Peters. Two Plumbers was in St. Charles. So like, there's nothing in O'Fallon. So let's go to O'Fallon. So O'Fallon became our location just because of the demographics of the other breweries. That's really the only reason why we picked O'Fallon, is because we knew where those other breweries are. And Matt lives in O'Fallon. I was in Lake St. Louis. We just thought it'd be good. So what do? You go up and down Highway K. You're looking for all these spots. Well, we would call these retail spaces like, hey, this is Dan with Good News Brewing. We're going to open the first brew pub in O'Fallon. We're going to have wood fire pizza and brew beer. And they'd be like, who are you? I'm like, oh, it's Dan with Good News Brewing. They're like, oh, okay. All right. And they wouldn't return my phone calls. They didn't care. They had no interest in some microbrewery at that time.
Yes. This sounds eerily familiar. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a very frustrating process. Most of the responses back were like, no, we're not interested. We don't want another bar in the area. Well, you said wood-fired pizza. That sounds scary and risky. No, we're not interested. So no one on Highway K were interested in this. So one day we were just driving up around North O'Fallon, and we came across some signs, and it was weird because like you would see a sign that was like handwritten for rent and like have a phone number, and you would call it. And it's like, hey, this is Jim. I'm like, I want to talk to the owner of this company about. It's like, this is he. Like, well, I'm actually talking to the owner of a real building instead of talking to developers and commercial real estate agents and that whole racket of process of the thing.
That whole journey you don't want to go through.
So to actually talking to the real owner of the building, got to meet with him, tell our story, tell her what we're going to do. We had a space that was going to work out for us. Got the city of O'Fallon in it. They're like, yeah, it's pretty big. You're going to need a sprinkler system. I'm like, how much is that? We're like, $80,000. We're like, let's find another place. It's not going to work out. We have no money. So that broke up with us. And then he's like, hey, there's this Tammy just bought this building up the hill from us. And she owns a laundromat. And she has a little office space next door to her. You should go check it out and see. I think this is more in line with what you guys are wanting. Because we were just going to use our 1-barrel brew system. We were not going to buy we were not going to invest into a bigger system because we didn't know it was going to work out. This is a risk. So we went up the street, off Sondern Street. I went in there. I peeked through the windows. I'm like, man, this place is way too small. This place is tiny. It's less than 1,000 square feet. I'm like, this is not going to work out. Her number was handwritten on the sign. I called her up and I was like, how much are you wanting for this space? I'm just curious. It's probably too small for us. She's like, I don't know. We haven't really figured that out. Probably just a couple $100. I'll take it. Sounds great. Let's do it. So yeah, we're like, let's do it and let's figure this out. Told her our story. She loved what we were doing. She had the idea, she understood why we were trying to do what we were doing. And so she's like, yeah, let's figure this out.
So at this point, it's just beer. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, it was. It was just beer. That was kind of the plan. It's interesting. I wanted food. My wife, who is now technically an investor because of her credit card purchase that she didn't know about, it was funny because so Matt and Josh did not want food. And I still tell the story to them now. It's like, especially, like they did not want food. They're like, oh no, we're just going to make beer. We're going to be a brew pub. I'm like, no, it's not going to work. And my wife Annie was like, no, I'm not going to let you do this. If you're not going to have food, then no, because I don't like going to breweries just to watch you drink. So
that's fair.
Fair enough.
All right.
So I was like, okay, I agree. So it was a very interesting concept because the space was so small. So we had to figure out what can we do that's small and that everyone likes. And we're like, well, we have a passion for pizza as well. The pizza that we're eating, that this is my recipe from home. The sauce is Matt's recipe from his house. So Matt and I were both homemade pizza makers as well. So we just had a craft for just making things at home. So we would just make pizzas all the time. And I'm like, what are we going to do? Well, let's do pizza. Well, I think the business sense of things. Well, everyone has pizza. What's something that's different? What's something that's unique? Well, there's no wood-fired pizza in St. Charles at that time. There was no wood-fired pizzas anywhere. So we're like, let's do wood-fired pizzas. I had no idea how to do wood-fired pizzas. Never cooked on one. I just have had them before at places. Like, those are pretty cool. And I was like, okay, what's a little different? So we do sourdough. So okay. I think that's an interesting part of this podcast is that we do our own sourdough starter. A very interesting part of that is I got this sourdough starter from being an assistant principal. One of the parents at the school used to bring bagels once a month for all the teachers. And I had this bagel. I was like, oh my God, this bagel is like just so, it's amazing. How does it, like, I don't understand. Because I was a bread maker already. It's like my bread never tasted that good. And I found out it was a parent that brought them in all the time. I became friends with him. He gave me his sourdough starter, and this is the exact sourdough starter that we're using today.
You've kept that alive ever since. Oh, wow.
Kept it alive. We keep it fed. We've been growing it. And so, so like if I look back at what was one of the greatest things of me being an assistant principal was I got a sourdough starter, which is the sourdough starter that's used for
your pizzas. That is awesome. That's a great story. So as you got into this you got your place. What were some of the early challenges you're facing about just like, well, you told us the challenge of finding. What was some of the challenges of, kind of keeping it going, knowing where you were, seeing, is there more to this, or are we just happy with our little place?
Yeah, and I say, what's interesting is, there's the entrepreneurship journey is challenge. You're going to get no's, you're going to get shut down, you're going to be told this isn't going to work. But really, those things I can get through. Sometimes it's the hardest part is convincing my business partner, my wife, and our families, and those people around me to, hey, let's do this. I'm a go person. I'm the accelerator. Matt is the brakes, and so my wife is the brakes. So that's really been, I would say, my biggest challenge is sometimes getting them along with what I'm wanting to do. That being said, I need them a lot to give me that resistance to say, no, this isn't going to work out. But we are a faith-based company, and Matt and I both have this motto of, if it's meant to happen, God, if it's God's plan, nothing can stop us, and it's going to happen, and we're going to make it happen. So get out of our way. If it's not meant to happen, it's going to stop, it's going to fail, and we need to accept that and be okay with that. So we really let our faith kind of drive that. It's a challenge because sometimes, God doesn't answer your plans right away. It can get kind of dragged out a little bit. And so you don't get an immediate yes. You just have to listen to a still small voice.
Okay. When did you find that opportunity to move? I don't know. What was your next place after this? And when did you know that was opportunity?
So we opened up, we got our O'Fallon location, got that open, and it was a huge success. We had a great following and turnout. It was the right time. It was the right place. It was the right location. Everything. The finally O'Fallon was ready for it. If we would have done it probably a year or two earlier, it probably wouldn't have worked out. I think the timing was God's plan. It was God's timing. It worked very well. In the first 6 months, you couldn't find a seat there. It was packed every single night. Now, there was only like 10 tables there, so that helped out. But
we won't tell our listeners there's only 10 tables.
But having a small space actually was to our advantage, and it created systems that were perfect for us. Because we were small, we could only do pizza. Because we were small, we had to do a minimal menu. Because we were small, we had to create gathering tables that are communal tables. All of those things, that structure has helped create us the systems of who we are and our philosophy of now we have this big place here in Defiance. I could do a full menu here. I've got a full kitchen. I could do burgers and fries and wings and all that stuff. But we don't, because we know what works. And what works for us is beer and pizza.
So starting small taught you the values you needed to continue to grow. Absolutely.
And I think that's where businesses fail a lot, is they try to throw out too much options, and you're only going to be it's a crowded space now, and we're going to be known for, I want to be known for just a few things. But can we do an official pause?
Sure.
I need a refill.
Oh, okay. We're going to pause for a refill moment. And we're back, all filled up with beer and good to go. So you were talking earlier about entrepreneurs and some of the mindset behind becoming an entrepreneur. If we have some entrepreneurs that are very interested in opening their own beverage industry, whether it be beer, coffee, what advice would you have for them today? What's changed since you've started, and what do they need to look out for now?
So it used to be, if you build it, they will come. And that's not the motto anymore. We're oversaturated with coffee houses and drive-through coffee places everywhere. Breweries are opening up left and right. And so you have to figure out what's the full package you're providing, and people want food. So a lot of brewers don't want to deal with the food. They just want to make beer, and that's it. And I would say the other part is you have to love people. A lot of people who are in that beer industry, they just want to make beer, and they just want people who are, like like them who are going to come, they're just going to come there just because they have their own beer. And that's just not the situation anymore. You have to, if someone, I've heard before, it's too, once you open a brewery, it's not about making beer. It's about selling beer. And how you go about that is you got to find out what your customers want. And I think the other part is that you got to find your niche. Like who is your target audience, and you need to know them very well, and you need to be able to connect with them. And everyone can have their own target audience, and you should figure who that is and be able to really just go after them and make your space for them.
Do you believe the type of beer you brew helps define your niche?
That's a great question. I think so. There's some breweries that I know that make a certain specific style of beer, and that's all they make, and they attract a certain type of people because of that one. I'm not going to get into the styles or the names, but yeah, I think I know there's some people who make certain beers, and they have this gravitational pull to those people who like those beers. And I would say that's for us. I mean, our number one seller beer is our Belgian White. Mm-hmm. I don't drink it.
I believe I'm drinking it right now.
I'm drinking American IPA, but it attracts. It sucks. But our number one question here is, what's your closest thing to Bud Light?
You're not the only brewery I have interviewed that has that same problem.
Right. And we're going to, and we know that, and I'm okay with that. And so that's why we have to train them and teach them. So when we actually created our beers, we created what we call, I call them gateway beers. So what are these gateway beers that we can guide them through? Let's start with the Belgian. Let's start with a brown ale, a pale ale, American IPA. We'll step them up there, and then we can get them into other things. So that's just kind of our process for our beers, and we make them easy and drinkable. That's going to be kind of crowd pleasing. We're right here in Defiance. We're on the Katy Trail. Yeah. So people who have been riding their bikes on the Katy Trail, they're here with their family. They do not want a triple IPA. They do not want a barrel-aged stout. They don't want a sour beer. They want a fruited sour, but our Belgian White sells more than several of our beers combined. Okay.
Now you got into location a little bit. There was one question I wanted to have. I was reading another article. I believe it was from Feast magazine. And it was something they asked you, and you were really defining the locations you want to put Good News at, and you're really trying to fit the location with the culture. Can you tell us a little more about that? Like, especially this location, you sit right off the Katy Trail, the Missouri River. You've got really unique town here in Defiance, and how all that synergy works. And then also you got a place out in Frenchtown in St. Charles. A little different.
Yeah.
But what are the similar differences, and why does that fit your niche?
So first off, I mean, our motto is gather, eat, drink. That's what we are about. We are about creating gathering places first. Gather, eat, drink is our motto. It's not distribute beer. It's not package beer. We make great beer. It's gather. And that was our principle that we started with, is gathering in Matt's basement and inviting people. So we create gathering spaces. And to have gathering spaces, you need community. You have to have people who are going to want to come to that gathering. And so what is the community that we have in Defiance? It's families, it's cyclists, it's people who are going out to wine country. Walk around here in Defiance, you're not going to see one person sitting at a table by themselves.
True.
That doesn't happen. It's people who are meeting here. They have a purpose. They're coming here with their family, their friends, and it's a gathering space for that. Go to our Fallon location. Yeah, we've got several people who are there sitting at the bar by themselves, and then we're the local, the regular, the norm, and that's what's great about those locations. But this location is a different audience, and so you need to know back to who is that target audience of who you're trying to connect with. But that's what we love about Frenchtown. We love it because there's so many neighborhoods around us. There's so many houses around us that they can walk their dog to. Couples can bring the stroller down. We want to be a space that has that experience.
Okay, and you got some great neighbors too.
Yes,
as well.
Yes, we do. The neighbors help.
Yes. All right, we're going to get now into sort of the theme of the podcast, Harvest to Pour. And I'm really interested in the Harvest to Pour journey and the processes, the challenges you face in between, and some of the ones you currently face as well. So just take me through where you source your ingredients, how do you make a Good News beer uniquely yours, sets you apart, and just the pour kind of gets into how you let people know who you are, how you show up, and what makes them come come back 3 and 4 and 5 times and to enjoy your beverage? It's a long question. I know.
That is a long question.
And anything, and
it's good. Well, first, I'm not the brewer. I don't. Everyone can thank me for that right now. You don't want me making the beer. I told you I only made like 1 or 2 good beers. I know how to beer. I know how to brew beer. I know how to do all the things that we need to do to sell beer and to create a gathering space. But we have Justin now, who's a phenomenal brewer, one of the best that I know. We can all thank him for making great beer because he's taken our beer and made it even better. All these recipes are our beers that our Belgian white, our brown ale, our persimmon Christmas ale, our hazelnut coffee milk stout. These are all beers that we made in our basement.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so they're the same. I guess I would say same recipes, but Justin has tweaked them, modified them, made them a little better for the commercial scale. So they're actually just always getting better. So that's kind of that's a great thing about we are critical on our beers, and if we don't like it, we're gonna adjust it. I think what's funny is I say the hazelnut coffee milk stout. That's a very interesting story of how that whole beer got started. We were brewing in our basement, and we wanted to do a coffee stout. And I'm a coffee snob. That's I've always been a coffee snob. I have every coffee paraphernalia that you can think of in my house. I was a home roaster, and so I'm a coffee snob. And there's a couple things that you should never do when you're combining coffee and beer. And one is you should never do pre-ground coffee, right? You got to do whole bean coffee. Yeah. And you never, ever buy flavored coffee. Okay, those are 2 things you should never do. So we made this beer, and Matt bought Papa Nichols hazelnut coffee that was already pre-ground. And he dumps this into the batch, and I'm livid. I'm like, are you serious? You just ruined our batch of beer. I was so mad at him. I was like, this is ridiculous. This is going to be horrible. I can't believe this. And I'm mad about it. And finally, we ferment it, and then I drink it, and I'm like, oh my God, we're onto something here. This is absolutely amazing. It was so unique and so different. And we're like, okay, we have to make this has to be one of our house beers. But we can't use Papa Nichols pre-ground coffee.
Licensing problems there.
We've got to, you're onto something, but you're not there yet. So I got an idea. We did so great at opening up this location in O'Fallon, and we love North O'Fallon area. Let's open a coffee shop. That sounds like a great idea, right? So
how many breaks were hit in this process?
Yeah, pretty much every decision we've made. There's drinking involved. We don't make any decisions without beer. We don't do anything without beer. We're doing this podcast. We got to have beer. Like that's our motto here. So we found a little space in North O'Fallon. It was a house that was for sale. We went back to the bank and pitched our idea, and the idea was I think the hazelnut coffee milk stout could be one of those beers that, if I think the long term of our company, I think the hazelnut coffee milk stout would be one of those flagship beers that people will like, oh my God, that's that one. They're the ones that make that hazelnut coffee milk stout. And a lot of breweries are going to have that flagship. You like it or not, they're just going to be known for that. Yes, our Belgian white's our number one seller, but I think the hazelnut coffee milk stout would be that one that we could be regionally well known for that beer. It's so unique and different. So right now, so now we open up the coffee shop and we roast that coffee. And yes, we still flavor it with hazelnut coffee milk stout or hazelnut flavor because that's what makes the beer taste so yummy.
That's awesome. And then Alpha Omega was born.
Yep. Because of beer. Because of beer. Let's make that clear.
Listen here, coffee roasters. There was a coffee shop born because of beer. All right. That's awesome. So what is your maybe right now current biggest challenge you guys are working through right now?
Our biggest challenge, there's so many challenges that you deal with. It's every day you're dealing with challenges. There's so many. Just everyone's gonna have. If you're in business, you're gonna have these. You're gonna have labor shortage, money, all those things. I still, no matter what, it just goes back to our mission. We constantly have to remind ourselves why we're doing what we're doing. I think our biggest challenge is ourselves. We need to, you get caught up in the day-to-day grind, you get caught up in the business, you get caught up on paying loans and taxes and payroll and everything, and you start making decisions that are not mission driven but financial driven. And I think that is, you have to constantly remind yourself and stop and say, why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? And make your decisions based off of that, not the other facts.
All right. That is I was about to ask, was that you have that keeping your eye on your kind of your North Star, your mission,
Yep.
And not deviating from that. Actually, I believe I recorded a solo podcast episode about that.
Sure.
So it is a big deal. It can derail you. You're right. All right. So since you have to, remind yourself and get past your day to day, remind yourself of your mission, how does team communication play a part in that?
Team communication can be challenging. And what we've had to do this year is create structured meetings.
Okay.
We've had to formalize a process. Now that we have 4 locations plus the coffee house, so 5 locations, we're a regional company, and we have to be on board. And we use communication systems like Trello and of course email, but we have to constantly stop and say, hey, let's gather ourselves, let's meet. That's probably been one of the most important things, is just stopping and pausing and actually meeting and finding dedicated time to have those structured meetings.
All right, great. And so what meeting look like when you're having, like I said, 4 different locations? Do you bring in team leaders just for that, or is it a little bit different each time? You get how do you get the 5,000-foot view and the 25-foot view from your staff and employees and leadership?
Have you ever read Dysfunctional Meetings?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Sione thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we take that analogy, we took that concept, and we also compare it to football. So Matt and I Matt really is a football analogist, and we make a lot of football analogies here in our company, and our staff hates us for it, but it is what it is. And so if you look at a football franchise, what types of meetings do they have? Well, they first start off every game they start every play with a huddle, right? The quarterback brings everyone together, says what you're going to play. Well, so we have those meetings. So our staff every day, they need to gather their staff and have a little huddle for what's the game plan for the day. Do we have a wedding party over here? We have a reception over here. I've got to do this. You're going to be over there. We treat everyone like a team. Then you're going to have your sideline meetings where we might pull over the quarterback to the sideline and let's reflect on what happened. But then there's also specific meetings that you're going to have, and that's every Monday or after the football game. You're going to watch the film, you're going to record it, you're going to talk about the next team, the next thing coming up. So once a month we have a once a month meeting that we structure with our team, and we do the 30, 60, 90. What's 30 days out, what's 60 days out, what's 90 days out. Let's get this all planned. What's on the horizon, new things that we're initiating, reminding them of standard operating procedures, and so forth. And then, of course, a football team is going to have those closed doors meetings where the manager is going to pull in a player and close the door and let them have it. And then we're going to have those annual, reviews of the teams, and we're going to sit as a executive office and try to decide, do we have the right players in the right positions? Do we have the right coaches? Do we have everything like that? So we have our annual meetings as well. And then just that, Matt and I are always drinking beer together and meeting. That's probably been the biggest problem, is we make a lot of decisions while we're drinking, like I said earlier, and then like one day later we're like, wait, what did we say we were going to do? Whatever we said was really brilliant, but I can't remember what it was. There's that.
I believe there's a program called Otter, so you can say whatever you want to say and look it up later.
That's what we need. I probably don't want that because I don't want to hear some of the things we said while we're drinking.
True. All right. So where do you want to take Good News Brewery next?
Wherever God leads us. And wherever God is saying we're going to go. And that's a challenge. That's a constant struggle that I have, because I'm go. I said earlier, I'm the press accelerator, and sometimes I try to get ahead of God, and that comes back to bite me. But physically, realistically, where we're going, our next move will be in St. Louis somewhere. We will be opening a location in St. Louis at some time. I don't know where or when. I think that's going to be our next area that we're moving towards. Okay. We actually have something.
St. Louis. Uh-huh.
Yes.
That's
we actually have something in the works right now that I cannot disclose. But yes, we have actually a contract under a place, but it's still just under contract. That doesn't mean anything because there's so many unknowns and variables that just need to be figured out. I don't know if it's going to work out or not. I'm hoping it does, but yeah, it's going to be in the St. Louis area.
All right. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Trying to get ahead of God. He has those hold my holy water moments with you.
Yeah.
Watch this.
So, yeah. Try and tell God your plan. See what happens.
Yeah. Man. All right. So you've talked a little bit about this, but just kind of flesh it out. That impact you want to have in your community. I believe you mentioned it was a gather, eat, drink. What outcomes have you seen with your presence here in different communities? What have you done? What have you seen positive changes in your community because of your presence?
Well, we have people who want to get married at our breweries. We've had engagement parties. We've had baby showers, bridal showers. We've had celebrations of life. We've had people who have passed away. We've had several of our customers and their significant other has passed away and they've wanted to have their celebration of life here. We have had our own family weddings and gatherings, and customers were at and in some of those weddings. So that is the impact that we've been able to see, is to really have that those people want to be a part of us.
Okay, great. All right, we're coming down to the last couple of questions. Usually this one's the hardest, but I think you've caught this one pegged. What is your favorite beverage here?
Yeah, that's easy. American IPA.
IPA.
Without a doubt.
All right.
I drink that 99% of the time.
If you were to ask your head brewer, what do you think he would say? Just out of curiosity.
He likes more the box. And, those, not the darker beers, but he likes, he definitely likes like the Munich Dunkels. He likes a lot of German beers. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you have any upcoming events or promotions you're going to be doing here, or any of your other locations?
So, Defiance always has some fun events. We always have our Christmas parade. We have our St. Patrick's Day parade. Frenchtown will have our Mardi Gras parade. So St. Patrick's is coming around. All of our locations will have fun events for that. But, of course, in here in Defiance, we have our Oktoberfest. So we are always, check out our website. We always have, different fun events that we like to keep everyone involved in.
All right, thanks a lot. And go ahead and just name off is it 4 locations?
Four Good News Brewing locations.
Okay, you have Fallon,
Defiance,
and where are the others?
Augusta is where we brew the beer.
Okay.
And then Frenchtown, St. Charles.
All right. And then Alpha Omega is located
in North O'Fallon as well.
All right. Well, Dan, I'd like to thank you a ton for your time. There is a lot of really great gold pieces of information, especially for entrepreneurs coming up, and things to look for, and even including how happy mistakes can create a coffee company. Again, thanks a lot for your time. I've really enjoyed this.
My pleasure. It's fun.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages with Matthew Shipp. Check the show notes for our guest contact information and connect with Matthew Shipp on LinkedIn today.